Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. A quick info before we begin. Today's video has 2 stories and both of them have updates. Now let's get started with the first one. This post is from the subreddit Relationships and it's by user NoWorkLifeBal. My 27 female second boyfriend 24 male in a row just broke up with me because he was jealous of my boss 32 male. Is this inappropriate? I am an executive assistant at a fast-paced job. I am one of my boss's 2 executive assistants, and I was handpicked for the position after his last one retired through a personality assessment in addition to skills assessment 2 years ago from within the company. I assumed her duties, which include the typical but also a lot of life management, including shopping, clothes and foods, his schedule, and basically making his life easier in a variety of ways. The personality assessment and our being married to work have made us a working relationship. In addition, the first year was full of a lot of stress for both of us. His girlfriend left him for his best friend and my father passed away, which made us close friends. When my first boyfriend, Patrick, left me, he was jealous of my Mal. I assumed he was jealous of the hours or didn't understand our changing life and didn't want a girlfriend who was frankly a bummer at the time. However, yesterday, my boyfriend of 4 months, Aaron, broke up with me because I don't want to be the oblivious guy in a rom-com. I was surprised. While Aaron and I weren't serious between our schedules, we were really just getting to know each other. I liked him and was excited about the future. He had a good sense of humor and was so busy with his own work that he didn't mind Netflix, Chinese, and chill being the bulk of our relationship. I love my job and I love my boss. Yeah, you do. But can this all be a coincidence? Do I need to draw lines? How do I draw lines? Here are some things that Aaron cited when I asked what he meant. 1. I answer his phone calls on his first ring, which, well, yeah, it's work. 2. I spend late nights with him doing date-like things. Usually this is work-related or food after a long night with no breaks for meals. We aren't going on romantic getaways or holding hands at the movies. 3. We have each other's spare key. I have spent Thanksgiving with his family. I buy his underwear. Work. Nowhere else to go when my dad died. Work. And 4. He's given me head rubs before and gets me frequent gifts. Typically things he buys himself he will grab 2 of, or just generous gifts for holidays or as thanks for working extra hard. That is all the concrete stuff he gave me. The rest was vague things. You know everything about him. You smile every time you mention him. Blah blah blah. I really don't know if my boyfriends just aren't understanding my work. I am not sure whether I am genuinely too close to Mao or if I am just your average workaholic. Advice? I don't want to quit my great job or lose a great friend. Well, OP, I've just got one question. Did your boss at some point in time get kidnapped by the 10 rings and then emerged from a cave with the first Iron Man suit? Cause your boyfriend Aaron absolutely wrong. This isn't a rom-com. This is clearly Iron Man and your Pepper Potts. Now, leaving the jokes aside, you mentioned as the vague things that Aaron said to you that you smile every time you mention him. Now, as opposed to my under-the-breath comment that I said while I was reading your post, I don't think that you are in love with him, or maybe not consciously, but you definitely do love him. He is a very important person in your life. You said it yourself, he is a great friend. Now, I don't think this is a problem of your boyfriend not understanding your work or your relationship with your boss. I think this is a time problem, and the fact is, time isn't elastic. If you dedicate most of your time to your work and your friend, your boss, then you obviously will not have enough time to build any kind of serious relationship with anybody. Because no self-respecting human being is gonna settle for 10% of your time to build a relationship. If you want that, then it's friends with benefits or a fling. And if you don't want that, well then it should be Netflix chill and yourself or maybe a friend or, I don't know, a book. But a boyfriend, I see that very unlikely. So the question boils down to, what do you want? And if the answer is, you want a relationship more than anything else, then you gotta reduce one of the other 2. The thing is, OP, something's gotta give. It always does. And now it's up to you. And what do you guys think about this whole situation? What would you do if you were in OP's shoes? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they said. Deleted says, I've had executive assistants in the past and been around countless others. I have never seen a CEO with a key to the executive assistant's apartment whose underwear is bought by her or who gives her head massages. Your boyfriend's reactions are not surprising in the slightest. Ridiculous Poodle says, you're filling the roles of nanny, best friend, and girlfriend to this guy. That's a lot of blurred boundaries and a lot of expectations to heap on one person. How many hours per week do you spend with your boss? How often is your personal time interrupted with calls and texts from him? Do you think of him first as your boss or first as your friend? Do you prioritize his needs above your own or your boyfriend's? If you were interviewing for an executive assistant position at another company and you described your current job to them the way you have here, how do you think they would view you? Answering these questions may give you some insight into what is going on here. It does sound to me like you're too close and that this job is not strictly professional. Head rubs are insanely inappropriate in a boss-subordinate relationship, and buying underwear is nowhere near what an executive assistant does in any place I've ever worked. You both may have over-relied on each other due to your personal circumstances, and as a result, you function more like best friends or a couple than you do employer-employee. It's easy to understand why your boyfriends have felt uncomfortable. I think it will be hard to draw lines at this point because your job seems to have no boundaries around it. Anything and everything could be considered work, so if you try to stop doing any of it, you risk being seen as unwilling to do your job. If you and your boss really are close, then you could approach him with it as a concern. Let him know that two different people have pointed out that they have felt your job interfered with your personal life and that this has made you rethink some things, but that's going to come with some risk. And OP responds, the parts my boyfriend objected to are maybe 10% of my job. I do a lot more, and honestly, my job is of vital importance to the company. I have seen my ideas put in place in a large, successful corporation and work. He probably does call or text too often. Princesca says, why can you only be his good friend if you buy him underwear? If he goes and buys things anyways, why can't he grab his own stuff? You know, like an adult? Would you be okay with your boyfriend getting effing head rubs from his female boss? That's something people in a relationship do. The only thing missing between the two of you is kissing and having sex. Literally everything else is romantic relationship level. You want everything, but I can't tell you it won't happen. Either you learn to put up some much needed boundaries or don't try for anything more than a fling. I said that. Kind of. A relationship while you're someone else's nanny or wife just isn't feasible. And OP responds, that is legitimately part of my job. He works an extremely high stress, long hours role. I do all of his shopping. It's not like I buy him underwear often anyways. I go by his last calendar and buy him a certain number of pairs every 4 months. I would do it on Amazon, but frankly, I like going shopping during the workday and getting some fresh air. Additional information from OP's comments. I make a ton of money. I get to travel to cool places. I have an associate's degree but make more than most of our employees with a bachelor's degree. Also, honestly, the personal assistant aspect, shopping, etc. is probably only about 10% of my job. I spend a lot more time planning and coordinating, and Mal uses me as a springboard to bounce ideas off of, and genuinely takes them seriously. I have seen my ideas transform a big corporation. It's not like being a secretary on Mad Men, it's a vital role. Low-level execs try and court my favor because they know I get crap done. Plus, I work with great co-workers who I genuinely enjoy seeing. Now, I have to say though that Mal doesn't treat the other assistant as he does me. She has kids and loves working for him. He really is a good boss because he insists she leave at 5 on the dot. She also has responsibilities that involve her leaving his sphere more often. She doesn't get my bonuses though. I replaced an older woman who was actually his nanny growing up and then got hired on in the company when he got too old. So even though the underwear thing seems weirder, it is literally on my calendar along with a long list of other schedules the last executive assistant left me. It's still weird. It is not sexual, it's work. I bought him the same kind a 60-year-old lady bought him. And about the keys, honestly, it seemed simplest to give my boss a set of my keys. It's for if I lock myself out or lose my keys or such. I moved to the city for work, and while I have friends, no best friend. Plus, I know where he is 24/7 and half the time I am with him. So it's purely a convenience thing. I use his key for work. He has never used mine. I did get locked out though and was grateful to have such easy access to my keys. I know it's not easy to have relationships and my job, but my problem is that I want it all. I want the awesome guy and my kick-ass job and the boss who is a good, generous friend. However, I never chose a holiday over a boyfriend. After I and the first boyfriend broke up, I had nowhere to go and he invited me over. It is a family company, so I know most of them. It was a nice gesture for someone who would have been alone otherwise. And to clarify about the head rub, I get migraines and he gave me a head rub maybe 4 times over 2 years. Never while I was with anyone, and he even offered, but I declined because I didn't want to make anyone uncomfortable. But I see your point and I do agree that something needs to change. Okay, OP, just one question. So your boyfriend broke up with you because he didn't see any boundaries between you and your boss. And after the breakup, you went and spent the holidays with your boss's family. Okay. Anyways, the community gave OP a lot to think about, and apparently she finally saw the point that something needs to change. So let's move on to the update to see how this story ends, but of course before that, here's another one of my playlists for you to enjoy after this video. Now let's move on with the update. A lot of you had some really good advice and I took it all in. I would like to take a moment to defend my job. I am not a sugar baby or a glorified nanny. For example, today I came in and spent the first 2 hours revising a presentation and preparing materials that Mal was to give after lunch. Then I helped him rehearse, made some verbiage suggestion, and brought him up to speed on a few attendees. Afterward, I read through employee satisfaction reports, summed them up into quantitative and qualitative data. I set up the conference room. Went to get lunch for us, grabbed the dry cleaning. After lunch, greeted meeting attendees. Took notes during the meeting. After the meeting, I continued with the employee satisfaction report. I formed a committee to handle some rough spots it uncovered. Made materials for the committee. Then I began researching an incentive program that I would like to implement. I answered emails with ongoing concerns, scheduled and reviewed Mal's calendar, called final job candidates, and tried to fit them in for final interviews with Mal. That summarizes the day well. Finally, I asked Mal if he wanted to grab a drink to celebrate a 3-day weekend. We only had a 1-day last week due to a conference. He was surprised but agreed. I told him that the boyfriend and I had broken up. He said that he hadn't cared for him and I could do better. I said I needed more of a work-life balance because at some point I would like a serious relationship. He acted dumbfounded. I don't text that often. Don't you like blank? I thought we were friends too. And it was hard telling him that I wanted all of that, but I couldn't because he can't be my best friend and pseudo-boyfriend and boss. I love my job and him, but I need to think long term. He was very upset and asked if I wanted to move departments if he was that bad. Honestly, I was upset too, and of course I don't want to move departments. I suggested we develop time frames and put a little distance in between us, such as not texting at certain times and me sitting in the outer area of the office more often. He said sure, whatever, and then made an excuse to leave. Later he texted me, "This will be the last text you get from me after 7:30. This is all BS. I don't give an F about my underwear, I care about losing my best friend." I haven't responded because I feel like I broke up with my best friend. You did. And I don't know what to say. I feel like I cut off my hand. I feel like I broke up with the most important person in my life. But I know that something had to change. Thanks, guys. Okay, call me crazy, but with the way the boss reacted and how much of in pain OP is, maybe this is like a rom-com? Anyways, OP, hopefully you made the right decision for yourself. If not, well, only the future can tell. And I think a big indicator is going to be how well your boss receives your ideas from now on. Hopefully that won't change. In any case, take care OP and thank you for sharing. Now, let's move on to the next post that, like I said in the beginning, also has an update. This post is from the subreddit Relationships and it's by user ThrowawayTuition1234. My 29 female boyfriend, 33 male, loaned money towards school tuition for his ex-girlfriend, 23 female. Is it reasonable for me to be concerned? Background. Let's call my boyfriend X and his ex-girlfriend Y. I've dated X for a bit more than 3 months. X and Y dated on and off for almost 2 years and broke up last year. Last night, when X was in the bathroom, I saw his phone and got a message from Y that read, "All fees paid. Thanks," smiley face. Since I didn't have the impression that they were still talking, and since he had granted me his passcode, I snooped. The context was that Y was going to some kind of training boot camp, sorted off a few grand for the deposit, and contacted X out of desperation to see if he could lend her that. X asked about her financial situation, how much she has saved up, the interest rate on the loan, etc. Then offered to loan her the full tuition and explicitly said, "Don't worry about paying me back until you graduate and have a stable career." I did some research and the amount he loaned or gave to her is around $20,000. To give some context, X is an established tech professional, so $20,000 is not a huge amount of money for him. However, it's also not an amount he would spend within a blink of an eye. In fact, he lives well below his means. His car is just under $20,000. I decided to confront X about it. X was uninterested in my finding out, believing he didn't do anything wrong, and in fact got offended that I snooped. He's right. When I asked why he would lend her the money, he said he wanted her to do well and succeed. I asked him if he still loved her, and he said no. I already apologized for snooping around, but should I have the right to be concerned about this? Does it look like he still loves her? What should I do? Well, OP, first of all, good for you for apologizing for snooping. That takes a big person. Now, regarding the money thing, the only thing I would be concerned about is if you guys have joint finances or are entangled financially in some way. Like, for example, that you guys are paying a loan off together or something like that and he gives her this money. Yes, that would be a cause of concern because it affects you directly. However, if this is just his money, then it's his to do whatever he wants with and you've got no say. The only thing I would ask is that in the future, if we do move forward with the relationship and we do get financially entangled and something like this comes up, then he needs to talk to you first to see what you guys decide to do financially. Now that that's covered, let's address the red flag, and that is his emotional entanglement with his ex-girlfriend. Look, I understand supporting a friend and helping somebody out or even wanting them to succeed, like helpful wishing. But paying off a $20,000 tuition for an ex-partner, that seems like a bit much to me. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know. Call me crazy. It gives me the impression that he's just too much involved in her life still. And what do you guys think about this whole situation? What is your advice for OP? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they said. Steve353 says, yes, you should be concerned. This guy is still highly involved in his ex's life and doesn't seem like he'll be able to prioritize your relationship over her. I'd just move on. Steve said it better. Starshine1988 says, yeah, that's a deal breaker, ladies and gentlemen. A 33-year-old man giving $20,000 to a 23-year-old for school. Sure, Jan, trust your instincts. But for real, even if there is no funny business going on, he has to know how this would look to any outside observer, let alone his current girlfriend, so he's woefully obtuse here in dealing with your feelings about this. The only thing that might convince me of his good intentions would be if he regularly has given friends large sums of money for schools or necessities. JP Hamlore says, this should be cause for an instant breakup. You two are done. Tell him to go back to his real girlfriend. And next time, don't date a 33-year-old who was willing to date a 23-year-old. He's obviously never going to consider your relationship one other than convenience when he would much prefer being with a hotter 23-year-old. Additional information from OP's comments. We haven't dated for so long, so in fact, we've had no problems until now. Yes, he cares and respects me, but again, we haven't discussed any big issues or argued about anything until now. Also, I'm actually a close friend of his sister, and from what she told me, they broke up because Y was extremely childish and non-committal. E.g., he tried to introduce her to his family and friends, and she always tried to find a way out. She's also very young and still wants to develop a career, etc, etc, while he wants to settle down and have kids. He actually never mentioned her to me, and it didn't look like they talked on a daily basis. In fact, the last time they texted on his phone before this happened was 6 months ago. I know that I'm not entitled to his money as we have not dated for a long time. I am more concerned that he may be still in love with her, as $20,000 is not a small amount to loan or spend on someone who you don't care about. Well, the community definitely said it a lot better than I did, and OP gave us some context to understand the relationship background and shared her main concern, that he's still in love with her, which seems to be spot on. Anyways, let's move on to the update to see how the story ends. Thanks to everyone who commented on my last post. I posted it on Reddit and left it there because I don't use Reddit that often. Anyway, after I confronted him about the loan, I told him we needed to stop talking for a few days so I could think about the relationship. Today, when I was leaving my office, he texted and asked if we could meet. I almost ignored it, thinking he realized what he did was inappropriate and wanted to say sorry. It turned out, when I was thinking about the relationship, he was evaluating it too. He realized the girl still meant a lot to him, probably a lot more than me. He's not sure if he wants to get back together with her, but he's pretty sure he doesn't want to waste your time any longer because it's unfair to you, and by you, he means me. So yes, Reddit, my relationship ended abruptly, my pride was shattered, but at least I can be glad about the fact that my time isn't wasted anymore. I already booked a spa day for me and my best friend. Smiley face. Well, OP, even though your pride is shattered, I'm gonna call it a positive update because it's only 3 months that went on this thing and nothing else, and now you can move forward, so good, it's a good thing. Yeah, of course, this could have been avoided if he would have been more honest with himself, and hopefully he learned, but now you're out of there, so here's wishing you the best in the future, OP. Thank you for sharing and take care. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out, so here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later, and also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.